So we are here. I'll just give it a few more seconds so that people know that we're here. And with a bit of luck, we'll have a couple of people watching us live. Who knows?
Yes.
Who knows when it comes to a live?
The choice of live.
Yes, that's right. And so if anyone happens to be watching at the moment, then please do type in the chat box which city you may be watching from, because it would be lovely to know where you are from. And if you happen to be watching the replay as well, do type #replay so that we know that you're watching the replay as well. So here we go. All right, so it looks like we've had 6 views of the video so far, so people are starting to turn up, and we will go live now. Here we go. Good morning, Jane. How are you?
Well, how are you?
Not too bad. So we're here in sunny Sydney. It's a lovely day, and we're in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. And this is my series of Time for Global Connection #LinkedIn Live broadcasts, where I bring on amazing experts such as Jane Anderson, who is an incredible lady who's a personal branding expert. And I'm very excited that you're spending a little bit of time with me today. So thank you so much, Jane, for coming on with me today. Wonderful. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today is talking about our businesses and how businesses actually can innovate, and the importance of creating content at this time during downtime when we are working from home, because so many people have got a little bit more time on their hands. So creating content is a good thing because it positions you as a thought leader, whether you're running your own business or whether you are a career professional and you may be looking for another job moving forward. So let me just have a very brief introduction of me, just in case someone is getting to know me just for the first time. And I'm a career transition coach, career management coach. I'm the author of Navigating Career Crossroads, the A to Z really of making a career transition. I'm the host of Your Career podcast, where I provide some inspiration and advice on careers, and also interview fascinating people like Jane Anderson, who's been on the show as well, on how they made their career transitions. And with so many people going through career transitions at the moment, I think this is very timely. And so what I would like to do now is introduce Jane. So I have a beautiful intro here. Let me just quickly go through it. So Jane is a strategic communication expert. She's worked with over 100,000 people on their personal brand, content creation, and lead tribe building. Her clients include Virgin Australia, Lego, IKEA, Rio Tinto, and Origin Energy, and many, many more. She's interviewed people like Seth Godin. How amazing is that, on her podcast, The Jane Anderson Show, and has been featured in the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, Sky Business News, and on Sunrise. She's also a Forbes Coaches Council coach, and she has recently been voted in the top 30 branding gurus globally, and has been nominated for multiple international and local awards for marketing and women in business, including the Telstra Business Women's Award and Queensland Voices Award for Women Leading Change. What an amazing lady. Her LinkedIn profile is, now listen to this, one of the top 1% viewed globally, and she's the author of 7 books. I'm merely the author of 1, okay, but 7 books, including Catalyst Content, Amplify Your Brand, Build Your Tribe, and Lead Change. So thank you so much, Jane, for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you, Jane. I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to catch up with you. And listen, I think you've got a new job for the future of work is reading. I'm going to bring you on the road with me with doing bio readouts. You did such an awesome job. So, who knows? It could be the job in the future of work.
Well, I could talk the hind leg off a donkey, but what I have been told, interestingly, I think because of my podcast, is that my voice is very soothing, and I think my voice is very soporific, so I can put anyone to sleep, and that's why I've got some meditations that I've recorded just to relax people when they're feeling a little bit stressed. So, okay,
really like that. I think it's good timing for that right now.
Yeah, I think we all need to relax a little bit as well. And so, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, coronavirus, COVID-19, and it's affected all of us. And it's affected my business, it's affected your business, and also personally, it's affected us too. So how has it affected you on a personal level? Just very briefly, Jane.
Yeah, look, I think that, well, the big thing is I was actually due to get married this weekend. So that was probably this weekend. Yeah. So my wedding has been put off, and, we put it off to this weekend next year. Hopefully that will happen. Who knows what restrictions will be in place, and if we can actually have our guests all together, I don't know. So yeah, personally being affected was that. And I mean, I kind of go, well, there's a hell of a lot worse things happening in the world than that. So I'd rather people safe, and I'm not worried about that. But, I think it is something that, you can't see family. All my family are in New South Wales. I'm in Queensland. So I can't see my family face to face, and probably a bit like you too.
Oh, yes. My daughter and her husband, who live in London, are here with my nearly 6-month-old grandchild. And of course, that's been very exciting. They couldn't fly back to England in this month in April. So their flight now, they can't get on a flight till June. But we don't really know how long it's going to be. And of course, having them here longer made me so happy, but I can't see them. So I can see them at a distance, which is, it really, the aching heart of any grandmother who wants to cuddle their grandchild. But today in the news, they've just announced that 2 adults can come and visit you, and you can bring the children. So that means, yay, I can now have family over to visit, because I'm feeling perfectly healthy and well, and they're perfectly healthy and well. So that's going to make a difference. So personally, I think everyone's felt that they're missing family and friends, and thank goodness for things like this, like Zoom and StreamYard and video conferencing. But it's not quite the same, is it?
No, not quite the same. And I think that's one of the things that I think is really highlighting at the moment for businesses is how important human connection is. No matter how much digitization you create, we all want to connect at a human level, and that face-to-face kind of experience and human connection, I think we're realizing the value of it.
Oh, yeah. And actually, if we do it right, video conferencing can be very personal as well. I mean, I have my cup of tea here, so we're having a virtual tea or a coffee anyway.
Yes.
I think that's quite nice. And as long as we can get the lighting and the audio right, and then it's almost like, you're here in the room with me, which is wonderful.
Yes.
And I have a few questions that I have prepared, because you have got so much experience when it comes to branding and innovation and content creation. And so there's so much that we can all learn from you, Jane, which would be wonderful. Can you just initially just share with the current coronavirus pandemic, how has it affected your business?
Yeah, so, for most of us, many of us have corporate clients as well as, so in my case, I have corporate clients as well as I work with a lot of experts in their field. And there's, when the clients when they aren't generating revenue, they have to put programs on hold and things like that. So I work with a lot of speakers, coaches, consultants, but especially keynote speakers. And so, for most of them, they've had 12 months worth of work wiped out of their calendar. So it's affected, I guess, in terms of, programs being put on hold for clients and things like that. And that's okay. I understand, it's no problem. But, when they're not on the road, I'm not helping. So there's a big part of that's sort of about half of my business. And the other half is corporate. So corporate clients where I'm out delivering programs. And so the big shift for me, from what I've found for my corporate clients, is most of them have continued to work on. However, and because I work with global clients, so they're global multinationals. So what I've had to do is I've had to actually adapt programs depending on the country that they're in. So whilst they were face-to-face, now they're dispersed and they're online. But I'm coaching people in China. I've got people in Singapore. I've got people in New Zealand. So like Singapore and China are at a very different stage. China are back to work. So I've had to speed up some of the work there to help them, whereas we've had to slow down. So it's about being really adaptable. But also the other thing that has been a big thing is realizing fairly early on, starting to watch some of the information that was telling us through Google Trends and data that was coming through of what behavior was happening with the public and what was happening in terms of looking for experts. So the big shift that I think I've spent most of my time on is not just myself, but helping other experts to see themselves as experts at what they do and not to hide. I've spent most of my time trying to really encourage the experts that are out there. There's a real fear of, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to, there's too much, there's so much going on for everybody. I don't want to add to the noise. So I've actually spent most of my time trying to work out how do you find the balance between being annoying and being informative.
Actually, that's so true, because the thing is if you're providing value, it's not annoying, because people have a choice: read or don't read, listen or don't listen. You have a podcast, you've got an article, you've got a post on LinkedIn or on Instagram or Facebook. If it's there, people can consume what they want. But you're right, so many people are afraid of putting themselves out there because of a multitude of reasons. And actually what's interesting is I too have had quite a number of face-to-face workshops and presentations postponed or cancelled, but some of them I've been able to conduct online. But conducting a full day workshop online, I've done 2 of them, 7 hours online. It's really quite exhausting. And for you, Jane, you recently had that amazing 2-day content club, which I attended. At the end of 2 days, I was exhausted and you were leading. So it's a different skill set that we have to learn. But when it comes to professionals putting their content out there, we're all sitting on this whole a mountain of value. We've got years and years of experience, and even though some people are feeling like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there, I'm thinking there's so many people who would benefit from it. Don't you think it's almost selfish to keep all that value in you?
Yeah, I agree with you. So there's a couple of things that have shifted in the last month that maybe some people sometimes aren't aware. So the first issue is that is helping people, and I think for those that are watching today, is to bear in mind that we all have a bias. We have an unconscious bias around how we consume information and how we look for information. And so what that means is that we say, well, I don't read newsletters, or I don't read Instagram, or I don't read LinkedIn, or I don't watch LinkedIn Lives, or whatever. But so just because you do something a certain way doesn't mean everybody else does the same thing. So for example, I watch TED Talks more than I listen to podcasts. I create a podcast, but I don't listen to that many podcasts. I tend to listen to a lot more TED Talks, and I'm just not in situations where I get to listen to podcasts very much. And so the first thing is remember that just because you don't do something doesn't mean the rest of the world doesn't. And then the other thing that's happened in the last month that's really significant, and why putting yourself out there and finding ways to be able to share your message and your content, regardless of whether you're a job seeker. I want to talk a little bit about job seekers and job changes, because I know a lot of people watch about this work with you, Jane, which you do such important work in. So one thing that's been a significant change in the last month, particularly since we went into lockdown, was that the consumption of information, like people looking for information and searches, have gone up. The data tells us it's 60%. The research, I've done it on my own clients, and with the research we're seeing is more like 200%. And that's because I specifically work mostly with experts in their field. And so people go to the people who are the experts, who they trust, who they know. So the first thing that I really have been encouraging people to do, and this is what kind of led to the content creation boot camp that you attended, and because when I started because initially that was my first fear, was, okay, what do we do? Do we, we know in a crisis we have to over communicate, but this is a pandemic, and people need information from people who are COVID-19 experts. But then I'm thinking, but what are all these businesses going to do? And they're still looking for us to show up as leaders. So how do we do that? And so one of the things that I realized, and that I was away actually in Adelaide at the time, and I remember I put myself into isolation because I really had to think about what was going on and read the data to see if I could work out what was happening. And so I came home and realized that I looked at the problems that people are having, as well as the clients that we've got. And I realized that the biggest challenge I had prior to COVID-19 was helping people to try and get them to put their message out there. And I was like, oh, wow, can I get them to do it even more when we're in a pandemic? So I thought, you know what, with the consumption of information that's gone up so dramatically, I need to find a way to help people see that this is really important. And this is not a time to be quiet. This is not a time to turn Netflix on and go hide and just, hope that it'll blow over and go away, and then you can come back out. Regardless of whether you're an expert, or perhaps if you've been through the situation where maybe you are in career transition, like maybe you've been stood down or something like that. What we learned from GFC, and what we learned from a big change of government here in 2012, when 17,000 people were made redundant from the public service. I did the outplacement for a lot of those. What we learned was that a large number of people actually went into their own roles. So as in started their own businesses. We also have seen a spike in things like Airtasker, Upwork, Fiverr. So people putting themselves out there. Now, the challenge with that is that when you're fairly new on those platforms, you don't turn up as high in the algorithms and things like that. So again, this comes back to, well, how am I going to communicate my value? How am I going to stand out? And if I'm an expert, how do I do this at scale without being annoying? And that was when I was like, you know what, all roads are leading to content creation. So I've been running the content creation boot camps and content club for the last just about 18 months now. And so what I did, which you were a victim of mine, Jane, for a couple of days.
Lots of fun, very exhausting, but lots of fun.
And we're still friends, which is good. So what I realized a few years ago, so like you said, I've written 7 books, and I had a lot of people ask me, how do you write so much content? How are you so prolific? And I would say, you know what, if you've got a plan and you just lock yourself away for 2 days. So usually a book would take me a couple of days to unpack and then get it written over the quarter, but I unpack all the ideas and get the content out of me. I usually take a couple of days. And I started to say to people, look, here's how you do it, because I was asked all the time. And then I started to say, well, what if I put it on? What if I hold the space for you and I just show you what to do? Would that help? And people are like, yeah. So then that sort of started. And then when all this happened with COVID, was like, I need to put on one of these, but I need to just put it on for whoever needs it right now. And for those who get, okay, content is the hardest thing for me to do, particularly if you've had to close your business, like if you're a retailer or whatever it might be, or being able to share your expertise and value, is you've got to get content out. You've got to somehow stay connected with people. And the only way we can stay connected and keep contributing is to add value and to try and share our expertise and knowledge. So we put that on. Everybody that we had an incredible amount of content created. We had 5,800 pieces of content created in the 2 days for everybody who joined. And I typically value a piece of content at around between $5,000 to $10,000 per piece. That's based on what we've seen. We've had some clients where a piece of IP's generated, over $2 million, but I just say on average about that. So worked out that in 2 days, it generated about $50 million worth of value for people's businesses in the couple of days. So content is not going anywhere. People still need to hear from you, but it's the only way that you can educate and stay in front of your audience without being spammy. If that makes sense, doesn't it?
You know what I created, if we go by those numbers, I've created about over $300,000 worth of content in 2 days, thanks to you.
Yeah. Well, you did the work. So, And you also, you know, you had at one point you had a glitch, you had a computer glitch, but you still came back. Like, you're like, I'm not letting this get the better of me. I'm doing this, which I just absolutely admire about you.
Well, I have to say, so I was in the middle of Jane's content club, and I was beavering away, and I was writing my content plans, and I was on a roll, and I thought, this is amazing. I was really on a roll. And then it all disappeared. I had about 22 pieces of content that were all there, all documented, raring to go, and it just disappeared. And then during the content club, I spent 3 hours trying to get onto Apple to say, how can I retrieve my content that's just disappeared? I never got it in the end, so I was a bit behind, but then I scrambled, and for the next day and a half, I managed to catch up a fair amount. So that was good. But I think the good thing about Jane's content club is I can highly recommend it, because it makes you focus, and you're there, you're all in it together. And Jane you use that Pomodoro technique, which is fantastic. Yeah. So in an hour, you can create anything between like 5 and 10 pieces of content in an hour. Amazing. And then we have a little break, and then we start all over again. And I find that really effective, because even though we say, oh, we can do it on our own, we don't. We just don't.
Just don't.
On our own. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
it's good.
Yes, thank you. I'm so glad you made it. And because you've got incredible expertise and knowledge, and the more that we can get that out. And, you know, really, I say we need 4 things to be able to work at, you know, I find a lot of people actually come out and go, I will never look at 10 minutes the same way again. I didn't realize how much you can actually do in 10 minutes. So we create one piece of content usually in 10 minutes. Some people went past that. So I realized, I was like, geez, I must be slow. 10 minutes, I thought I was going pretty quick.
I don't know how some people did like 10 pieces of content, you know, and just like that, and I was still on 5, and I thought, how did they do this? They must write very fast or think a lot faster than I do. But I like to do, you know, the 10 minutes blocks were perfect. That was really good.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, I find 10 minutes is sort of suitable to get enough, you know, that you don't have to keep backfilling. But I reckon to work at that level, you know, people need sort of 4 things. They need a plan. So you have to, and you did the pre-work, you came in with your plan and you knew exactly what you were going to do. You need accountability. So you need someone to hold the timer to go, right, you're going to do that in the next 10 minutes. You need the space. You need someone to hold back the traffic a little bit. And like you said, the focus to be able to go, you know what, we're going to turn off all distractions. We're just going to get this done. So it's not often that we get the space held for us. It's very hard to complete that work and try and create your own space. So even for me, for my team, they hold the space for me. So I do it. So I have to get one of my team. I go, run the timer. I'm going to do this. So I have to get someone to do it for me. And then the last part is support, you know, because as you're trying to work on this content, you get stuck because you go, oh, I can't find the research for that, or what's a good quote for that, or I can't think of a story. And so when you're trying to come up with these things, is that rather than just go, oh, I'll come back to it later, is we push through those blocks so that you've got them right there and then, and you don't have to come back and do all this extra work because you couldn't find the research at the time, or you couldn't think of a story, or you can think of a quote, or, you know, and so we break through the barriers as we go along. So you come out and it's all done.
Yeah. And the wonderful thing is there's a structure to the content as well. So you can use a metaphor, you can have a quote, you can have a statistic, and that gives your content more credibility as well. Jane, I just want to just go through, I've got a few comments here that I've noticed have come through.
Oh, great. Awesome.
Richard from Melbourne. Hello, Richard. Jeff. Oh, hi, Jeff. Good to see you. Love having you here. Oh, Anne-Marie is here. So Richard's in Melbourne. Jeff, you're in Sydney, I believe. Anne-Marie from Melbourne as well. Tony is here. Hi, Jane and Jane, he says. Tony in the beautiful Macarthur, southwestern Sydney. Hello, Eduardo from the Philippines. Hello, very nice to know that you're there as well. Watching you right now, listening with the conversation. That's lovely. And Megan says, now this is an interesting question, Jane. How do you know, thank you for asking this, Megan, how do you know you're an expert, and how do you know what you have to say is relevant?
Great question. I love this.
Good question, Megan.
Yeah, I like that one. So it's Megan, yes, who asked the question. Okay, Megan, so a couple of things, and it's a great question because I don't know about you, but when I went down this journey, I was like, I felt the imposter. I was like, I don't know if what I've got to say is good enough. How can I even call myself this? And there's a couple of things that I really look for when I'm helping people to work out, am I actually an expert at this? The reality is we actually know more than what we think we do. So typically, I find most people I work with have got about 20 years experience at something. If you've read any of Malcolm Gladwell's work, which is where he talks about the tipping point and he talks about the 10,000 hours, I reckon that's about right. It doesn't have to be exactly that, but about 10, if you've got about 10,000 hours experience in what you've done. So it's not necessarily your job title, by the way. So you might not necessarily be, customer service manager, but your expertise actually might be in negotiating, like dealing with difficult customers. Maybe that's actually your expertise or your genius. So it might not be about customer service. It might be just some part of your skill that you've got. Maybe you're really good at making people feel welcome. Maybe you're really good at increasing sales. So it's not necessarily your job title would be the first thing that I would say. And it would be something, if you weren't in the room, I love the quote by Jeff Bezos says, your personal brand is often what people say about you when you're not in the room. It can often be asking people how would they describe you to someone else? And sometimes that's the first bit. But then you asked a really important question, which is about relevance. Because, we could all be experts at, basket weaving perhaps, but how is that relevant to solving a problem that the market needs? And that's a great question. So the next question is to have a look at, okay, well, what is my area of expertise? What is it that I know? Who has the problem that needs that problem solved that I can help with? And the third question is are they prepared to pay for it? So, because it's really nice to be able to, you can say, I want to go out and solve this problem in the world. As Dr. Jason Fox, who is an expert in motivation theory, he would say, but that's called a crusade. And so we've got to be careful that you're wanting to make sure that you've got something that is commercial and not a crusade. And solves the problem, and that people will value that you solve that problem. So if you're, for example, let's say you're an expert in negotiation or you're good at dealing with difficult people, then we go, okay, so where are the situations that applies? It's in leadership, it's in the public service, people who have to deal with, let's say where you have to go and get your license and registration, I'm thinking about people have to deal with the public, the police, all those things. So then we have to go, well, is there a market who understands that and understands to buy you? And then the third part to that is when you've worked that out, is as you're trying to grow your business, what we do is start to work out the tribe that you lead and who are the people who are buying this. And now you've got to really start to step into your leadership, into that message. I hope that answers that. A long way of answering it, but it's great question.
Yeah, it's good to know that round about 10,000 hours of time, and you think how much time you actually spend working on certain aspects in your career. You're becoming an expert every day simply through the time.
You really
We've got
are.
a few more hellos here. Let me see.
Yes.
So we've got Annette. Annette, you made it. Annette Rose. She says, advantages of having an event postponed. I managed to catch some of this live. Megan is from Geelong. Ryan wrote in. Hello.
Hi, Ryan.
My favorite Janes. How nice is that? Yes. Oh, and Con is here. Hi, Con. Great to see the dynamic duo together in one session. How nice is that? And Annette says, imposter syndrome is so difficult to overcome. So true. I think every business owner experiences imposter syndrome on a regular basis. But as you say, if you really step into your own power, don't you think, Jane? Because if you acknowledge that you are good at what you do, and everyone's got an area of expertise, then write about that. And to start off with, would you say writing an opinion piece is a good way to begin?
Yeah, I think there's a step before that. I think the step before that is, and this is an activity that I got you to do before you came into the Content Creation Bootcamp, is what we did was I asked you to write down 52 things or 50 things that you know something about. And in your case, it was careers. So if you can, and when I say write down, it's just a list. Like imagine they're like a sentence. So if you imagine, if we're in Jane's case, maybe you had something like, right, make sure you've got an up-to-date resume. You've got a LinkedIn profile that represents where you're trying to go, not where you've been. So they're just statements. And I reckon a good place to start that I get people to do is even just jot down, if you could write down 52 things, as in if there's 52 weeks in a year, if you had to write something about that once a week. So I get them to do the list first. And this is what I do. I go, I reckon I've got something in resilience or something. So I'll go, okay, I'm just going to see, can I come up with 52 things I know about resilience? And if I've got 5, then I go, okay, well, I probably haven't got that 100% unpacked, or I probably haven't got all my ideas ready for that. And that's when I'll hit the imposter and go, oh, I don't know if I've got enough there. So you're right, is to do an opinion piece, spot on. And then even the step before that is, can you come up with a list of things that you know about that? Then create an opinion piece and just start to get it moving. And you know what? If you're on the wrong track, you'll get a sense in your own self as to go, yeah, this is so congruent for me. This is exactly who I am. I feel like this is who I'm, that you're seeing for that. So yeah, the first thing is jot down a few things, see if you, and then get to work, then start to create the content. Because what my experience has been, if people get stuck, is I go do 10 pieces of content for me on it, come back and tell me if you still feel like an imposter. And that usually solves it.
Yeah, what's really surprising is that it's actually very easy to sit down and think, what are the 52 things that I know about? And then as soon as you start to think, oh yeah, I know about that. Oh, I know about that. And it doesn't have to be world-changing stuff. It's things that you know because you do it every day, but other people don't know.
That's
and
right.
Because other people don't know, it's your job to educate them on what you know. And once you get on a roll with it, it's like, oh yeah, there's so many topics that you can write about. And I remember when I was going through that exercise, it was initially, of course, it's, the resume and LinkedIn, but then it's branding, then it's building confidence, then it's developing resilience, then it's communication, then it's communication styles. And then you think, oh gosh, I actually know more than I think I did. So it's a really, really good
yourself. Yeah. And that's when you sort of do go, actually, I think I know some stuff here.
Yeah.
So yes.
Now, Jane, I have some more questions for you. Yeah, I realize we could talk for the next 4 hours.
I know.
It's kind of fun, isn't it? Don't you love LinkedIn Live? I love LinkedIn Live. Okay, so yeah, is anyone out there listening to us? Okay, we're enjoying ourselves anyway. Never mind the rest of you. Okay, so how about let's share a little bit about how we've adapted our businesses to continue to provide a valuable service during COVID-19. Okay, because you've adapted your business, and a little bit of a pivot for me. I've adapted my business, but I haven't had to adapt too much because most of what I do is online anyway. And so what I've done is just morph, the face-to-face. There are some things that I can't do online. There's one association organization where I work with people suffering from post-traumatic stress. And the whole point is to be face-to-face so that, they get used to that human interaction again. So doing it online isn't quite enough. So I've changed that. But most of what I do with the one-on-one coaching is very much like this, what we're doing today. So I'm still able to do that. But what I've changed is I've gone into, thank you, Jane, content creation mode. And right now I'm right in the middle of creating an online program on how to ace your interview, because with 800,000 people's jobs affected across Australia, there are people who are really getting quite fearful as to what do I do? Will there be jobs out there? And now is an even more important time to position yourself as the go-to person, as the expert in your field. So the content creation is not just for business owners, it's for individuals as well. So that's what I'm doing a little bit more of. And Jane, I'm sure you're doing lots. Tell us about it.
Yeah, look, I think the other thing along with content, because you're spot on, is if you can create the online course for that. Like, you've got all this expertise, is now start to get it accessible for people who sometimes maybe can't come and work with you virtually or face to face when that time comes. The other thing with content creation that I spend a lot of time with is working with leaders to create content for their intranet platforms. So, for example, I had a lady, so this was the HR director of a company who is based in, she's based in the US. So I've done the global team, but this one in particular, she rang me last week and said, quick, I need a piece of content. And so we did exactly the same thing. So I do this internally in corporate. And so they go in and they've got a content plan. They can create a piece of content in less than 10 minutes and put it up on their internet platform. And in her case, she said, can I quickly just bounce this one off you? And it was, she said, I've got to do a video this afternoon on, it needed to be about it was around be the example was the piece of content she needed to create. And this was for her wider leadership. So this was a piece of content to go out to 10,000 leaders in this organization. And so that's really difficult to do. You know, you can't get to meetings and when you're on global scale, and she needed to pull it out really quickly. She did the content page, we quickly went through it. She had her stories and metaphors, her examples and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so she was straight on a video within an hour and had that all done. But she had it ready in 10 minutes. It was all done, ready to go. So for leaders in organizations is also thinking about your content as, I don't know if you read any Patrick Lencioni's work, who's written the book, The Advantage. And he says that what we've got to do is over communicate, especially at the moment, because people, you know, narratives start, gossip starts, the grapevine starts, and our job as leaders is to keep that clarity. And he says our job is to be the chief reminder officer. And I reckon that's so right. And you can't do that if you're not coming up with how to communicate and repeat yourself. Because as leaders, our challenge is, if you're in an organization, our fear is, I'm boring, I've already said that, I'm being patronizing or condescending because I'm saying it over and over again. But you've got to find a variety of ways to say it and to make sure that you're keeping the narrative nice and clean, and you keep, and more than anything, it's keeping people engaged at the moment.
I think the important thing is when people are feeling anxious, and especially, you know, during times when working from home, because you're so used to working in a team environment and being with each other, and even that little conversation around the water cooler or in the kitchen, or when you're getting out, having a coffee, those little things are what people really miss now. And being able to reach out, and thank goodness for video, you know, and platforms like Loom and Zoom, where you can do, you know, very, very quick catch-ups as well. You're right, over communication, you cannot over communicate, because if you're putting the message out there and letting people know that you're approachable as well, and come to me if you have a problem, come to me if you have a question, don't hesitate to stay in touch. Is so important. My younger daughter works for an amazing company which is in hospitality, that of course has been affected in a huge way, because, you know, they've needed to stand down so many of their staff members. In fact, you know, the business is not running at the moment, but they're positioning themselves for when they get back to work, which is wonderful. But the two owners, this is Applejack Hospitality, I'm just so impressed with Ben and Hamish, who run the business. They communicate so well with their team members all the time. They have the social side as well as the work side, even though people are have taken either have been stood down or taking the pay cuts, of course. They're still working because they want to, because they admire their leaders so much. And I think that's, you know, if you can still keep that your values, stay true to your values, and still keep that beautiful culture within an organization, even when everyone is remote, through effective communication, because that's key, isn't it? That makes a difference. It's you know, I think there are going to be so many amazing stories of success and compassion that come out of this pandemic, that, you know, I know there's doom and gloom on the one side, but then there's also incredible opportunity for growth as well. We've got some more little comments.
What else have we got?
Let's see. Okay. Megan says, thanks so much. Never thought of it that way. My mind has opened to ideas. Ideas. Yes, that's what you need.
Yes.
Annette says, yes, goosebumps. Acknowledge that you are good at what you do. Yes. I mean, believe in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else is going to. It's got to start with you. Yes. Con says, belief in yourself is the first step in others believing in you. Oh, here we go.
There you go. It's all over it.
Henri says, really nice, clear explanation on being an expert. We are all experts in a certain area. We just need to believe in our belief. This is a common thread now, and start putting ourselves out there. Be brave and confident. Yes, Annette, I agree. Con said, a great, yes, because Con was in the boot camp as well. A great boot camp indeed. Highly recommend people look at it. I do too. And
Thanks,
and
Con.
he says, I did a special edition of my financial freedom boot camp to deal with particular chaos COVID has brought people who have income impacted. Yes, I think getting your finances sorted is very, very important too at this stage. Now, more questions for Jane.
Okay.
I'm milking Jane Anderson.
That's okay. Milk away.
Okay, and so now this is the content club. Okay, one of my questions was, I recently attended your 2-day content club, which was so much fun. Really enjoyed it. Can you explain to everybody, how does the content club work?
Oh yeah, cool. So we have we actually have content club and a content creation boot camp, and so they're kind of, when you came along, you did the content creation boot camp, which is an intensive couple of days. And the way that works, I find that's really good for people who are really time poor. They're really struggling to just be able to get offline and get focused, and they usually have either a deadline, or they so quite often they'll come and write a book, because that's how I've written my books, is in those 2 days. You can get a book done in those couple of days. So there are people also who prefer to work in really batched lots like that, and just prefer to get in and get it all done. So, but what I found when I was running the content creation boot camps was that people would say, I just realized I've got all these other ideas. When can I do another one? But I don't know if I want to do another whole 2 days. How can I keep the momentum going? And so I thought, okay, well, would once a month work? And they're like, yeah, that'd be great. So now what we do is on the second Friday of every month, we have Content Club. And so but you don't have to do the boot camp to join Content Club. You can just come into Content Club if you like. You still do all the pre-work, but it's more designed to keep a cadence and a rhythm going. And it's we do 2 hours once a month. And in that 2 hours, we create 10 pieces of content in 2 hours. So that's more than enough. And this isn't, cat video type content, as much as cats are lovely, but we're not creating, and I know you've got a beautiful cat, Jane.
Two. I have two cats.
You've got two. Oh, I thought you had one. There you go. But this isn't about just content that's spam or it's not photos of your lunch and things like that. This is your expertise. This is your content that is adding value and educating your market and connecting with your market, because at the moment that's what they want more than ever. So in the 2 hours, you do 10 pieces, and that's enough to go in. At the moment, we've got double the consumption that we're seeing of content. So there's 2 pieces to go out every week. And I'm not talking like memes and things that go up. I'm talking about a piece of world-class content that goes out. Some of it's got a little bit of thought leadership in it, but that's a whole other thing. But more so to keep that cadence and continuity, because most people say to me, I say, what's your number one problem with content creation? And they say consistency. And I say, okay, so we'll solve that problem. And the good thing is we run it on Australian, UK, Asia, and US time zones. So on that Friday, you can jump in any of those spots, but we've got 2 hour blocks across that Friday, second Friday of every month, and you're held accountable for that. So let's say, for example, if you go, I can't make the session in the morning, can I do the night one? So yes, you can do that. If that day doesn't work for you, we'll still be looking out for you and keeping you accountable. So if you go, okay, well, you're going to have to find your 2 hours somewhere else, or you might have to break it up. So a big part of it is the accountability, like I said in the past, the plan, accountability, support, and space, is somehow you now have to go and find that spot if you haven't got that day. So you're still held accountable to make sure you get that piece of content done. And And most who know me that I'll hold people accountable pretty well, but I'd say it's not me being tough. It's more me trying to help you to be able to hold that space and accountability, because when you have your own business, is that there's not too many people holding you accountable, and you've got clients you've got to deliver, but it's easy to kind of go, oh, I'll worry about it tomorrow, I'll do this. So if you can get in and get that done, you're still held accountable so that you can do it, because your content, we know, I've turned businesses around with their content, and we've seen it so many times, taken businesses from $500,000 to $1 million in revenue. Being able to get the strategy right and getting the content right, it absolutely does that.
Content creation, it's a magical thing that we can create, and it's all within us, isn't it? And I think if you can get over yourself and really believe, as you were saying earlier, then you could just sit down, put pen to paper or finger to keyboard, and just get it out there. Just have a massive brain dump, and then you can edit later. And
that's it.
It's so much in there that the mind actually boggles how much can actually come out once you get started. And I think the accountability is so very, very important. What was interesting is that I'm a career coach, and of course it's to do with career transition. But when I actually started creating, because I'm doing so much via video from my home studio now, I thought, I wonder if people would be interested in what equipment I use. And so I did a few videos on, like here, this is my my awesome. Blue, beautiful microphone. So I did a bit of content on that. And then I started talking about the Diva light that I have, and then the green screen and all of this about videos. And I'm not a video expert, but if I can do it, everyone can do it. And so I did a little video, and it got so much traction, because it's like, oh, where did you get that? Where did you get that? Oh, I'm going to set it up too. And I'm thinking, yes, we don't have to be experts as a videographer to be able to deliver via Zoom and via any live streaming platform. All you need is decent audio and decent lighting. So sometimes, we can do a little bit of a pivot. Maybe I'll get into videography.
You might. But what I love about that, Jane, is you've talked about an experience that you've had, and like you said, even if you haven't known about every single Yeti mic on the market and all the different prices and what will suit you, you've just shared something as your reflections and your experience. And I think even for job seekers, I remember doing a program with some university students and graduates, and there was they're often, as you would know, in the career space, they're often the hardest to market, because they haven't had very much experience. But there was one student that stood out, and she was so keen to be able to get a particular job. She wanted to work as an events coordinator for an expert. And so what she did is I said, well, what content could you create? I know you're not necessarily an expert at this stuff, but she said, well, I remember she went to a Lorna Jane event, the lady that has the fashion, sports fashion. And I said, great, what did you learn? And she said, oh, well, I learned this, and this. So she wrote a blog about when she went to that event. And then she also volunteered at an event, volunteered for, it was like I think it was a fundraising event. And I said, great, write a piece of content about that. What did you learn? What insights did you have? And so she wrote that. Now and those pieces were put on her LinkedIn profile, and she was snapped up like that. Because at the end of the day, what it shows is we learn a bit about you through those insights and your perspective. And a big part of what I teach in with people with their business growth is people are buying your they buy less, they're buying your programs, yes, like they've got to be able to buy something that's easy to buy, but what they're really buying is your perspective and your personality. And your personality is, can I actually connect with you? Do I like you? And do I like what you think? And if I like what you think, I'm not necessarily trying to be your best friend, but what I want to know is, do you get me? And the only way I can do that is if you create content.
Yeah. What's interesting is with LinkedIn, so many people, when they talk about themselves, and also so many people on their websites as well, it's all about them. Like, I am this expert, and I've got this many years experience, etc., which sounds a bit resume like. But if you're going to be creating content, I'd rather you put yourself into the shoes of your audience and think, what's keeping me up at night? What am I really worried about, especially now? And I think that's why with so many people who are talking about developing resilience or building
Yes.
self-confidence, and these are things that people are feeling, people are hurting right now. And so if you're able to create that content and you've got experience in that area, it's a bit like 2 weeks ago I had a LinkedIn live with Leah Zalams, who's a mental toughness expert. She was
Yeah.
talking resilience, which was great. Jeff Martin, who's an HR leader, but he had a brain operation, which resulted in a section of his brain having to be removed. But his sense of humor is better than ever. I mean, it's really exciting and how resilient he was. And then Karen Sander, who wrote Aging Fearlessly, and so many people now who are going through the career transitions and think, am I too old to be hired? And for her, 64, powerhouse woman, I thought I was old enough at 60, but she's 64 and she's just going great guns with everything that she's doing and creating storytelling events. And, I think now people are reinventing themselves, and there's so much more that we can do as well, which leads me very nicely, Jane, to
Yes.
the question. What are you looking forward to once we emerge from our current COVID-19 challenges?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to certainly being able to, I think just that human connection, there's so much, digital. And I think the power of presence, being able to just be around family, be around friends, be around clients, to be back in that face-to-face experience and the human connection and the human experience. We can bring in lots of little things to be able to create that. But the other thing I'm also really looking forward to is now that we've been in this situation and we've been forced into this situation, I'm really looking forward to people being more open to bringing in digital as part of delivery and how things are done. In Australia, if we look at, we're a very face-to-face country in terms of our communication. We have a low trust society compared to some others. So it means that we naturally fall into wanting to be face-to-face with people. So as much as I'm looking forward to face-to-face, I'm really looking forward to businesses being more open and people just generally and finding new and innovative ways to communicate like this, and not feeling like, I'm in Brisbane, I have to get on a plane every 5 minutes if I need to get face-to-face with people. So, being able to, have a conversation on Zoom, LinkedIn Lives, these kinds of things, that they become the new normal, and people are more open to it as a communication medium. I'm really looking forward to that.
And especially as the strategic communication expert, it's just right now, the more communication, the better. And I think your insights today have been so valuable. What I'm looking forward to as a career transition coach is to people being a lot more mindful of their actions going forward as well, because everything we say, everything we do has an impact on our planet, on our animals, on the earth, on our friends, on our colleagues, on our businesses. And I think that this has shown that we can adapt. Everybody has to change the way they do things and the way that they communicate as well, out of necessity. And who would have thought 6 months ago that there would be anything like this? How Zoom, as a video conferencing platform, has just boomed exponentially, how people have embraced using online technology. And also what's really important is how flexible we can be with our work arrangements, because I think organizations now are going to realize that, yes, people can be trusted to work from home and get work done as well. And so I think if organizations adopt more flexible work practices, there'll be greater job satisfaction moving forward too. That's what I'm really looking forward to. And I think the world of work will change quite a lot as a result of it, till it goes back to business as usual. That's what I'm worried about. It'll
be interesting to see what even that is, isn't it? And I think you're right too, is even how work will change, is that I think for businesses is that this is for so many people realizing the opportunity at working from home and going, well, you know what, like even my fiance Mark, he's like, this is actually not that bad. I reckon I could do 2 days a week at home. I'm actually really productive. So you're right. I think there's the trust factor that's so like, well, and people, and because they've had to try it out in a really compressed period of time, whereas if they were doing this like once a day over a period of months, it would take a while to kind of get that sense of productivity. But I think you're right in that this is going to create, for many organizations, their competitive advantage when it comes to talent attraction. And they're going to have to work out for those, because now everyone's got a taste of this. I mean, you and I have been doing this for years, so it's we're kind of used to it. But for organisations, if they want to attract great talent, I think there's going to be a war. There's always a war for talent, but the biggest challenge will now be saying, okay, how do we put these processes, or how do we put this as a value proposition into working with us? Because yes, we are happy for you to work from home. We're happy, it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts on the war for talent.
Yeah, that's right. We've just got a few more comments. Let me just go through before we wind up. So Megan goes, this is such great info. Loving it. Thank you, Megan. Lovely. Sounds amazing. Con says, what we are saying lately is so many free resources on how to handle COVID and work from home, but very few are showcasing how they are applying it and how the free course has delivered some tangible outcomes. Yeah, I'd like to know what the tangible outcomes are. Okay, so, and then what does Annette say? Annette says, I love that word mindful. I've been talking a lot lately about being conscious, living our life consciously. Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. Being conscious, being mindful, being grateful of all the wonderful things that we have. And I don't know if you can hear in the background, but my husband's home at the moment. And he had an operation this week on his knees.
Oh, wow.
And he's out there mowing the lawn. What is he doing?
Oh, he is so. See, he's thinking she's on LinkedIn Live. There's no way she's going to come out and tell me to stop.
I think I might have to now. Jane, it's been such a pleasure talking to you, and I really hope that in 2021 the wedding happens. Oh, my younger daughter also is going to get married this year. I think it's probably going to be 2022 now. We'll have to see how things go, and well, I look forward to restrictions being lifted, to COVID being eradicated somehow or kept under control, so that we can all enjoy connecting in person as well as online. And I really appreciate your time today. It's been
my pleasure. Thank you
so much for having me. And remember,
everybody,
but remember, the Content Club and content creation, connect with Jane Anderson if you're not already connected. I mean, you're already so connected, Jane, but anyway, for anyone who hasn't connected,
you're welcome to connect with me here. That's fine, all good.
Yeah, and find out. And if you're not connected to me yet, then do connect as well, because I think between us we provide a lot of support and help for professionals in our own areas, so that they can really take control of their careers and their lives too. So thank you so much, Jane, and I'll say goodbye for now, and I will end this broadcast. See you next time. Oh, don't forget, follow Time for Global Connection, and you'll see all my LinkedIn lives as well.